I want to welcome folks back to another Zoom conversation. And my guest today is Lynnette King, who was a longtime colleague at the Margaret Chase Smith Library. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm great and doing good. Thank you. How are you?
How are you doing through the pandemic?
Well, it's been really long. I haven't seen Haley since Thanksgiving of 2019. So normally I would have seen her a few times since then. So as soon as we're vaccinated, everybody's vaccinated, we'll go to Georgia and see her. Mm-hmm. It's been long.
I was just trying to do the calculations today because, they're trying to get over 70 done. And then today in the paper, it said in March, they're thinking they're going to get to 65 to 69. So I was trying to do the calculation backwards to when they'll hit the 55 to 60 bracket for me.
Yeah.
So you have raised something that I wanted to highlight, that we've been doing this long enough. You are actually our 32nd interview.
Wow.
That we're now, it's not just connections to Margaret Chase Smith and Margaret Chase Smith Library, it's connections to other people who we have interviewed. And so you mentioned one. And there you are with your daughter, Haley, who was our 28th episode. And this is back in 1997, Margaret Chase Smith Appreciation Day. Do you have any recollections of this at all?
Yes, I do, actually. I believe that was the one where Angie and Vanessa and I were also honored that day. So Haley was there and helped me serve punch, and it was a nice day. I do remember that. It was very hot.
There were many other pictures that went along with this series, and I did notice that yes, there was one where you are at a podium receiving an award, and then there's a picture of the three of you together. I think Joanne Brown got one as well. So I think it was actually the four of you.
That's right.
All four of you together. And that was back in the days when there was a group called the Skowhegan Community Action Group, and I think they were the movers and shakers behind this event.
Yeah, they were. They did a lot for the Skowhegan community.
Yeah. There's a group trying to bring back Community Appreciation Day, and they had one tentatively scheduled for the fall, but actually it wouldn't have been the fall. It would have been, it would have been last fall, which because of the pandemic, they had to cancel.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So the other connection to someone we've already interviewed is Angie Stockwell, who was
I love Angie.
For many years. And so this is from 1991. And when did you start working here, Lynn?
1990.
So I was thinking this is one of the earlier photos of you.
Yes, and that was
at the library.
I believe that was the main town meeting.
It is. You have a good memory.
I had to go on crutches because we were playing at home. We were playing baseball the day before with Luke and Haley and a bunch of their friends. And I ended up spraining my ankle getting a 4-year-old out on first base. So.
Oh, okay. Well, at least you got the out.
Yeah.
Took one for the team, as one of our other colleagues would have said.
Right. Yeah, Greg. Yeah.
And so I also wanted to highlight for people that if you've missed past interviews, we do have a website on YouTube. We have one as a channel, and you can just go to the MCS Library and see any of these past episodes that you missed.
Angie's was great. I really enjoyed it. She's been a good friend for so many years now. So since 1990, since I met her. So
yeah, I was able to catch her just as she was exiting in her retirement. So we were able to reminisce about her over 37 years working at the library. So the real connection we want to focus on is Margaret Chase Smith. And here's a photo I was able to find with the library staff and some volunteers with Margaret Chase Smith. And this is the occasion of her 96th birthday, which was being celebrated at the Blaine House down in Augusta. And actually pictures the governor, which was John McKernan at the time, and his wife, Senator Olympia Snowe, are in the photos as well. What do you remember about this event?
Oh, this was just a wonderful, wonderful event. There were so many people there, and Senator Smith was at the top of her game. I mean, she knew, she recognized everyone that came through that receiving line, and she was really happy. It was her birthday, and it was, so it was right around Christmas time, and everything was decorated for Christmas. We had the Christmas tree up and in the Blaine house, and it was all decorated, I remember, with origami doves, I believe, in that Christmas tree. And we all had our pictures taken with her, and it was really a fun day.
So just to let people know, her birthday was December 14th, so it was always around Christmas time.
It was always a fun time.
So let's backtrack and let's let people know how you came to have this connection to Margaret Chase Smith. So I'll let you pick up the story.
Well, it's very interesting, actually. In 1990, we just moved in the house across the street from Margaret Chase Smith.
You were her neighbor, quite literally.
Yes, we just moved in, and just a few months before I started working there, because we moved in, and actually when we moved here, Steve was telling me that, that was Margaret Chase Smith's house, but he thought that she had passed away, because it had been so long since we had been back in the area. And given that she was elderly when we left, we were thinking that she probably still wasn't living. And it wasn't long after he said that she came out the front door. He said, "Oh, that's her right there." So, but Willie Turcott, who was the groundskeeper, remember, of the library,
and your neighbor on another side,
on the neighbor on my left, she had told him that she wanted to meet the new neighbor, and he told me to go on over, because she wanted to meet me. And I was really nervous about that. I was really kind of scared to death, because I didn't feel like I knew enough about her, and she was a big deal, and I was really nervous. So I kind of let that go. And then he came to me again and said, she really wants to meet you. She'd mentioned it again today. And so, I didn't want to offend her. So I called the library, made an appointment, and for the next day. And I think Luke was off playing with a friend, but Haley and I went over. She was just 4.5. And, I had been a stay-at-home mom at that point for nearly 8 years. And so I took Haley over with me, and I expected that I would just get to shake her hand and introduce myself and then go home. But she invited us into her living room. And so Haley and I went in, and she loved kids. It was evident from the moment we went in there, and she started playing with Haley with this little wind-up dog, stuffed dog that was in the living room. And she had me sit down next to her, and we talked for a long time. It must have been an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. It was a long time. And she was asking me all kinds of questions about what I had done in my life, where I had lived. And looking back on it now, it was almost like an interview, but it didn't feel it at the time. It just felt like a conversation, and we really enjoyed ourselves. And so I didn't meet anyone else there that day, just the person at the front desk. And she was just, I believe, a summer position, and she left after that. And so the next day, she had the director of the library at the time, Dr. Gregory Gallant, come over to my house with an autographed copy of her book, The Declaration of Conscience. And I hadn't met Greg the day before, so he was just brand new to me coming up my driveway. And in that conversation, I was offered a job there at the library. And so
you were being interviewed.
I guess I was, but I didn't know it. My husband was away on business. He was in Milwaukee, and he called that night, and I said, Steve, I have a job. And he's going, because I accepted on the spot without even asking him, because I just felt what an opportunity. It's directly across the street from my house. And so he was just as thrilled as I was, but he's like, you what? So I began on September 4th, 1990, and we moved into this house in April of 1990.
Okay, very good.
So I was there 29 years and loved every second of it.
So before we move on to the work that you did for the library, I wanted to continue on with Margaret Chase Smith. You start there in you meet her in 1990, and she's going to live for another 5 years. And so what are some of your memories, and what was your impressions of what she was like? Of course, you're seeing her in her very later years, but what were your impressions?
She was still very active. When I started working at the library, she was still going on trips. She was, still very active. And so I was just so impressed by her. She taught me a lot about manners and protocol and things like that, things that were very important to her.
Mm-hmm.
And we caught on very quickly. There was a lot of unspoken rules that I caught on to very quickly, like we always wore a dress, so we didn't wear slacks, and
Don't step over velvet ropes.
No, I did that
even if you're
once.
6'4" and can easily clear them.
Exactly. Yeah, I did it once and never did it again. So you never made the same mistake twice, but she was just great. I loved her. She, during the day, was very businesslike. She did, well, Angie and I still call each other Mrs. Stockwell and Mrs. King, because when she was, when we were by ourselves with her, she always called us by our first names. But if we were in the presence of anyone else, she always called us by our surname. So it was always Mrs. King, Mrs. Stockwell, Dr. Gallant in front of each other.
Yeah.
So Mrs. Stockwell and I always kept that up. So we still call each other that just for fun. And, my shorthand, I hadn't done shorthand since college. And, she immediately had me come in and do her mail with her as soon as, because in those days, Angie left at 1 PM. And so she would have afternoon mail, and she'd have me come in and read her mail to her, take dictation. I'd go back and type them up, read them to her, and then she'd sign them.
Yeah.
So we did a lot. I did a lot of mail with her. And then after that, late in the afternoon, she would just have me come and sit in the atrium with her and just talk. And so we would just have conversations, and we did that most afternoons, and it was just fun.
So you got to spend a lot of quality time with her.
Really did, yeah. I got to spend a lot of time.
Do you still have that autographed copy of the Declaration of Conscience?
Of course, yes, I do. And I have her creed. I have an autographed creed as well.
Oh, very nice.
That she gave me.
And is the photo within arm's reach?
Oh, one of the photos, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a family photo.
Okay. Yeah, it's a very nice one.
Yeah, I always like this of the family, and I always keep it prominently displayed in my home. So
that looks like it's very soon after you had come to Skowhegan.
Yes, that was that first appreciation day.
Okay.
And Angie took this picture.
Okay. Very nice.
Thank you.
So what's your enduring memory of Margaret Chase Smith? It's over 25 years now since she passed away.
Her service to others, always doing good things for others, which is what she always wanted us to do. And I mean, she got me into community service work very early on. As soon as I started there, she said it was important that I do that.
Yeah.
And it's something that stuck with me, and I continued to do service work. So.
Well, I'm remembering now while we were working together, how often you would say, that it was because of Margaret Chase Smith encouraging you to get involved in community service work. So let's take the opportunity, tell people what you did for community service work, the groups you were involved with.
Well, when I first went to work there, and of course we were very, we were just a few months here ourselves, so we didn't know very many people. And a lot of groups asked me to join their groups, and I didn't know anything about the groups. So I went to Senator Smith and asked her, I can't do all of this. I have 2 small kids, what should I do? And she thought that I would be happiest with Semper Fidelis Club. It's part of the General Federation of Women's Clubs, because there are a lot of young mothers like me in there as well. And so she thought it would be a good fit. And so I did join the group. I loved it. I loved all the people. They're still my very, very good friends. And from Semper Fidelis Club, I co-founded another group, part of the General Federation of Women's Clubs, called GFWC, the Dove Society. And our first order of business was making Margaret Chase Smith an honorary member, because it was because of her that I became involved with community service at all. And so we had that group. It was very, very active. The Dove Society earned awards for being, so active and within the main Federation of Women's Clubs. And so we were very, very active, but the club survived for 17 years. And then we disbanded just because of leadership. There was just not enough people that wanted to take on the leadership roles. And some of us that had been in those leadership roles for so many years didn't want to continue to always be, those types of positions. So it kind of just naturally disbanded. But I'm still very involved. Semper Fidelis Club invites me to their meetings. So I go to their meetings every once in a while, and still involved with the main Federation of Women's Clubs too.
Well, women's clubs had obviously been very influential and important in Margaret Chase Smith's career. It's sort of where she got her start in networking with people. And I think that benefited very much in her political career, all those connections that she had made. And then the commitment to service as well, even when she gets in elective office, that was something that was very important to her, was how she could serve people. You're also reminding me, it is a problem today. It's actually one that several main town meetings have focused on. Are people as civically engaged anymore? Because something else that has happened is the group that she was very involved with, which was called the Business and Professional Women's Club. I think she helped to start it here in Skowhegan. It's now disbanded as well.
Many of those groups, the Women's Legislative Council is another one that had been around forever. And
which you were involved in that as well.
I was, yeah. And there were and she was as well. So there was, there's a lot of groups. It's a shame, really, but I guess people are active in so many different ways that they just can't do everything. And it's too bad.
Yeah. So I want to move now to the fact that, as you say, you meet Margaret Chase Smith one day, and the next day you're working for the Margaret Chase Smith Library.
Exactly.
And so I want to focus on your career at the library. I'm going to go to the shares. Well, what before we do that, so what were your responsibilities when you first started working?
When I first was employed, I was secretary to the director, which was Dr. Gregory Gallant, and the receptionist. And so I would greet people that came in, give them the tours, show them a video, things like that. So, and then did all of Greg's dictation, meeting planning, things like that. So I always enjoyed that. Anything with planning, I liked the planning part.
So you eventually rose up and became the administrator at the library. And what did those responsibilities entail?
A lot of paperwork. um, I I contacted the different vendors that the Margaret Chase Smith Library is associated with, contractors, um, any work that was done at the library, all the maintenance went through me, and I scheduled those things. And plus I processed all the invoices, planned the budget, did things like that. So helped the director plan the budget, I should say. So
definitely functions on the administrative side, but you still kept your hand in the educational work that we do. And now I'm going to go to the share screen and we'll get some pictures of you. School field trips.
You know, I never wanted to give up that part of my job that I first had when I first got there, which was doing the tours for the school kids that came to visit, because I enjoyed it so much. I love kids, and they're great. We had them all the way from first grade on to middle school, and then of course the director did the middle school on, because I really enjoyed the little kids, because you never knew what they were going to ask you or what they were interested in. So every single visit was totally different, because you couldn't anticipate their questions. It was fun. I really enjoyed it.
So there are hundreds and hundreds of photos I could have chosen from. I liked this one because it's more intimate. I mean, a lot of them, they're big groups. So, I mean, you just appear very tiny because there's so many people, 50, 60 people in the picture.
Right.
So this is you in the living room of Margaret Chase Smith's home, which is a very large room. So a good gathering spot when you're bringing tours around. What was the message? What would you try to convey to kids as you were taking them around through her house?
They really wanted to know who she was. And I think showing them her personal things was a good way to convey that. Her personal belongings were in the places that they are, because that's where she put them, and that's where she wanted them, and they remain so today. So nothing has changed there, and that's what I really like. I have just such fond memories of being in the house with her, and her telling me about all, like, the needlepoint work that she did on the dining room chairs and things. And they're just beautiful, and an art form that is not done a lot. And somebody that was so busy as her, I just so appreciated that. They really enjoyed the big windows looking out the property. So there was a lot of wildlife, and sometimes it was just like, I'd say, and we have a lot of wildlife out here, like moose and deer. And it was almost like they were cued, because you turn around and look out the window, and there would be foxes or moose or deer or something for the kids. And I when that did happen, which it frequently did, it was so much fun for the kids to see that.
Well, her property is right on the Kennebec River. So, I mean, that's one of the things that draws the animals down as they're going down.
It's just a beautiful piece of property, and that view of the river. Of course, we've lost some of that view over the years with the trees growing up, but it's really a beautiful piece of property. And of course, I always pointed out her urn, that sits in the living room. That was very important. And I was always impressed by how quiet and how respectful they would be when I would talk to them about that. It was.
Well, you had noted something that I've always observed is, you're talking about her out front. We show a video as they go through the museum, they see pictures of her. It always impressed me that she didn't become a real person until they got into the house.
Exactly.
And you could see that once they came into the house, that, then all of a sudden it's like the light bulb went on, and now they understood, oh yeah, she's a real person.
They could picture her sitting in that gold chair. They could, picture her entertaining there, because I'd show them the pictures of her with world leaders, Winston Churchill, and they just really got a sense of who she was as soon as they came in that house. And I can remember one little boy, this always struck me. He came through that front door from the atrium, and I opened up the door, and he was the first one, and he goes, I could just smell the history.
I love that story. In
I
fact, I
loved
think
it.
the
It was
story
great.
is that he had come here on a field trip and he brought a family member back in the summertime after school
Yeah.
was over.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was very much impressed me that he
He really was
he wanted to
excited.
share it and that he could smell the history.
And he was right.
Yeah.
You can.
Um, very good. So you gave lots of school field trips over the years. You had mentioned that they are all different in part because of the questions the kids asked. Do you have any memorable questions?
Oh,
Or common questions that they would ask? You know, what's a
well,
third or fourth grader? What do they want to know about
well,
Margaret?
they always want to know how she died. There were, always little kids. I wanted to talk about her life, but they
Yeah.
want first. You had to get out about her death. You had to talk about that first before they would move on. So I would get that right out,
Okay.
after the video, because otherwise, each question, every hand that would go up, they'd want to know more about that. So I would, of course, I was there when she suffered her major stroke, so I have that memory. So I would just go on from there, but I didn't want it to be, a downer subject. So we would quickly talk about that and move on to celebrating her life.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So some other things that you did over the years, every springtime you'd go to the Margaret Chase Smith School in Skowhegan. And this
Oh,
is
wow.
a little shrine that they had to Margaret at the school. And what you
Look at
would do,
those shoulder pads and that coat. That was a while
what
ago.
shoulder pads? I don't see any shoulder pads. And you would hand out a Margaret Chase Smith Citizenship Award. So can you talk about the award? What that
I
represents?
love that award because I know Senator Smith enjoyed that award so much. And she used to go personally to the Margaret Chase Smith School
Mm-hmm.
and hand out that award. And what I noticed was when my kids were in school is that they were just calling it the Citizenship Award, and they were like forgetting, because it had been so many years, since it initially began, that they were dropping the Margaret Chase Smith part of it. And it bothered me. So I talked to the principal about it, and she, from then on, had me go down and hand out the Margaret Chase Smith Citizenship Award, and that's how it's listed on their program.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know it was so important to her.
Mm-hmm.
She liked it because the children aren't necessarily chosen for being the best grade in the class or whatever. They could be, but it was more about citizenship. It was how they treated other people, how they treated their classmates, their teachers, whether they were helpful or to another student maybe, or in the classroom just picking up or things like that. And so when these children were recognized, it's the biggest award that they give out. And it was always given out to the one sixth grade student in each of their sixth grade classes. And then eventually the Margaret Chase Smith School, the sixth graders moved to a different school. So then it became the fifth graders that got the Margaret Chase Smith Citizenship Awards. And these kids were great. They were very deserving of the award, and you can see how proud they were to receive it. I always gave, when Senator Smith was alive, we always gave the Eisenhower dollars that she had to them. And we continued to do that. But when we ran out of the Eisenhower dollar supplies, we ended up giving them A Woman for All Seasons, the book, because it is autographed by her. And I can remember her sitting there and autographing those 1,000 copies that we have of that book. And they're all numbered, they're limited edition books. So they enjoyed getting that. I would always give them a red rose as a reminder of who gave them that award. And of course, they got a savings bond in the beginning. And then when the savings bonds ended, they got a check for that amount. So they really enjoyed it. And I loved giving it out. And I love that they went back to calling it the Margaret Chase Smith Citizenship Awards. And every year I would also go through how it began and how it started and what the rules were for getting it, because the kids came up with the rules, what they thought was important to get the Citizenship Award. So
when did it begin?
I believe it was 1987.
And did Margaret Chase Smith initiate it, or did the school come to her and ask if they could use her name?
I think the school came to her.
Okay.
It was, I can't think of the principal at the time.
Was it
but
Peter Voss?
No, it was before him. So it must have been 84, maybe.
Okay.
Can't remember. It was, but the kids, the student council at the time of the school came up with the rules, and then it was approved by the principal and Senator Smith. And so that's how it started. And then they continued to do that, and they still do today. It's one student in each of their classes. So.
And as you were saying, it was when Senator Smith was alive, she would have been the one who went down and did that.
Yes, she went down and gave them out. And I can remember the first year after she passed, when I went down there, it being so, she passed away in May, and this was June. So it was really hard, very hard to talk about it the first year. But after that, I was okay.
And another role that you played is that for many years, when the library was affiliated with the Northwood University, they would send students from their Michigan, Florida, and Texas campus to Maine for 10 weeks in the fall, and we would take them around the state on field trips. And this is a field trip that you are on with them back in, I can't see the date on here, and you are at the Blaine House, which is the governor's mansion for the state of Maine. And the governor at the time was Angus King, who is right beneath the portrait. And he is now our United States Senator. So did you have favorite field trips that you would go on with the kids?
I did. I really liked taking, first of all, the fellowship students were great every year. That was one of my favorite times of year, and I missed it when they stopped doing that. But once a week, the staff would take turns taking them around to different parts of the state. And my favorite was, this was always fun, going to Augusta, to the Blaine House and things. But my favorite was, of course, going to the Brunswick, going to Bowdoin, Joshua Chamberlain's home, the coast, taking them to Giant Stairs at Bailey Island, and Cundy's Harbor, taking them to Senator Smith's summer home. That was always my favorite, going to that area. I love the Mid-Coast.
And you know, it was a favorite program of many of the staff members, and the students brought a lot of energy and vitality, sometimes in good ways, most times in good ways, sometimes not so good ways, but it kept us on our toes.
Most of the time it was great. And right from the very first one, I was there for the very first program that we had, and was Kevin Cottrell. I remember he was just awesome. And a lot of these students, many of them I still keep in contact today through Facebook. Just keep track of what they're doing in their lives, and they're very successful, wonderful people. So
I get out of the share screen because too early, because there's actually one more to go, and that is, eventually you decided to call it a career after 29 years at the Margaret Chase Smith Library, 2019. And so this is a tribute being paid to you by the board of the Margaret Chase Smith Foundation, which supports the library. And so as you, well, tell people about what they gave you as a going away gift.
Well, it's a globe. It's just beautiful. Actually, I have it right behind me. It rotates by light, And so there's no batteries or anything like that, but it just, I don't know if you can see it.
It's a globe, and the globe,
Yes,
the
and
globe
it
rotates.
and it is, and the president of the foundation, Charlie Cragen, actually picked it out, and it's just a beautiful gift. And it says, Lynn kept Senator Smith's world revolving. Let me see what it says. I'll look at this. It says, Lynnette G. King, outstanding service, 1990 to 2019, administrator, Margaret Chase Smith Library. Lynn kept Senator Smith's world revolving flawlessly. And it just means a great deal to me. I love it. And
so what do you miss about the library?
Oh, I loved my job. I loved it from the very start. I was there 29 years, and I just loved everything about it, mainly the people. Being such a small staff, we were, like a family. And I look out there now because, of course, you're directly across the street from me and right out my sewing room window. So while I'm quilting, I look over there and just think of all the wonderful memories I have of that place. And yeah, I just have a lot of memories, and working there and knowing Senator Smith was one of the greatest honors of my life.
So that was going to be my next question, is how are you keeping yourself busy in retirement?
I'm doing a lot of quilting, especially since we don't go very far because of the pandemic. Normally we would be, traveling. That was our focus of when we retired, but we didn't know we were going to be retiring into a pandemic. But I'm actually working on a quilt. I do a lot of quilting. So I'm working on Angie's quilt. When she retired, I promised her a quilt for her retirement gift, and I'm working on that right now. It's called Mayday Baskets. It's flowers for Angela. So I took actually a couple months off from quilting, so I hadn't done anything on it at all, and I'm finally back in there working on it again. So
very good. So you're enjoying retirement?
I am. I get to spend a lot more time with my mother, who will turn 90 this year. And, it's important to spend time with her. I took her to get her first dose of the vaccine this past week. So that was really exciting. I'm so afraid I'm going to get the virus and then give it to her. So, because I'm mainly the one that is around her the most, I should say. So I will be happy when she gets her second dose on March 1st.
Very good. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me, and I hope you continue to enjoy your retirement.
Thank you, David. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I miss you all.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.